Our favorite planet, Mercury, is going retrograde once again, this time in the sign of Gemini. In this video, I'm going to talk about what that means for you and how you can make adjustments according to your rising sign. If this is the first time watching one of my videos, my name is Omar. I'm the creator of blackastrology.com. And if you're one of my subscribers, welcome back. Good to see you. So, like I mentioned before, Mercury is going retrograde in the sign of Gemini starting May 29th until June 22nd. And just so I don't make any assumptions about how much anyone knows about Mercury in retrograde, I always like to start off on an equal playing field, just by explaining what a retrograde is in astrology. So let me start by saying there's no planet that actually moves backwards in the solar system, as the name retrograde might imply. In fact, it's really just an illusion of how we are positioned on Earth versus how we see the other planets in the solar system. Because the Earth moves at different speeds in the solar system compared to other planets, what happens is you get this back and forth motion that happens when the Earth approaches or moves away from another planet. And in this case, Mercury will be doing that in the sign of Gemini, the back and forth motion. And if you play both these visuals together, side by side, it'll look like Mercury is actually slowing down and then moving backwards, and then speeding up and then moving forwards. When in fact, that's not actually happening in the sky, but relative to astrology, what it looks like is that Mercury is going back and forth. This actually has some real life implications for us here on Earth. One of the things that makes this Mercury retrograde kind of interesting is because Mercury, the ruler of Gemini, is actually retrograding in its own sign. So what that means is that you'll see a lot more effects of a typical Mercury retrograde in the sign of Gemini. So normally when Mercury goes retrograde, you'll have a lot of disruption with regard to communication and travel, specifically short distance travel, like traveling to work, commuting, forgetting your car keys, forgetting luggage. Those are things associated with Mercury in retrograde. But you'll see that even more so now because Mercury is retrograding in Gemini. And that is sort of exacerbating the whole situation. And you'll notice that you'll probably have shorter attention, you'll lose focus, or like me, record 30 minutes of a video that actually the camera wasn't even on. So that is the type of thing you can kind of look forward to with Mercury in retrograde. A bit of, mishap, a bit of disruption, but it's really a time for us to focus on paying more attention to the details in our lives. It's also important to note that the sun and moon never go retrograde because they don't, I guess. But when you look at other planets, Saturn, Mars, all those other planets do go retrograde at different points in the year, sometimes every other year. Like for example, currently Saturn is retrograding in Aquarius, and Jupiter will soon go retrograde as well. So all of these things playing into the whole picture is why this Mercury retrograde may be a bit more disruptive than normal. How do we make this relevant for you? How do we understand what this Mercury in retrograde will do in our lives and how we can look out for them and prepare ourselves? One of the ways to do that is by understanding which house Mercury will do that back and forth motion, and understand how we can prepare ourselves in that area of our life. And the way to know what house is going to retrograde in is to know your rising sign. So based on your rising, you can know where to look out for in your life. So let's understand what it means if you're a specific rising. And I'll leave the timestamps below so that you can kind of skip to your rising sign, or if you're interested in knowing on a specific one, you can just hit the timestamp and skip to that part. But if you're an Aries rising, what you'll notice is that Mercury is retrograding in your third house, right, in Gemini, which means that you're kind of going to feel this energy a lot more than others. only because Mercury, the planet that rules communication, is in its home sign of communication in your third house of communication. Yeah. So what you really need to do as an Aries rising is to look out for expressing yourself in detail, right? Making sure that you're not getting your words misconstrued, making sure that you're not misunderstanding other people, and in general, understanding that everything that's said during this retrograde period it needs to be taken sort of with a grain of salt. Why? Because Mercury is that planet that rules our conscious mind, our ways of forming ideas and expressing those ideas. So you'll see that someone you're talking to may take your words the wrong way, and you want to try to avoid that by slowing down, understanding what you intend to say, and really focus on explaining things to people the right way. You'll also want to look out for any car issues, travel issues with regard to getting to work, to and from work, school, what have you. Also, any papers that you have to write, any emails that you have to send. Look out for typos big time, because what you'll notice is that your brain will be in another place while writing, and you'll forget something important, and you'll miss a word, and you kind of just look crazy. Also, Mercury, Gemini, third house, ruler of siblings, those people closest to you. So you may have to have a conversation with your siblings that might pop up, something that was old that's now coming back to light. Mercury in retrograde is also a great time to bring up old conversations, or really give thought to something that was in the past. Now, if you're a Taurus rising, you'll also notice that Mercury is retrograding in your second house. The second house is your house of finance, personal finance, your money, your means of worth, what you find worth of material possessions. And what that means is that you'll have to take extra precaution with regard to possibly spending too much, or forgetting something that you'll have to spend on, right? So think about, maybe you'll have a trip planned. One of the things that you need to do is make sure you have enough money for your trip. But Mercury retrograding your second house, you may not remember that maybe you put the money in your savings account and you need 3 days to transfer it over. So by the time you need it, it's not there. Those are the kind of mishaps that happen when we're not focused, right? And Mercury in retrograde really takes time to, it brings focus back into the picture, making sure that we slow down and really remember what we have to do. So with this time, I would probably avoid any real major spending on, items, because what you'll notice is that things you buy may have small details or things that you didn't notice were wrong with them, and you might have some buyer's remorse, and you want to avoid that as all costs, because it's just a headache to have to go return something. And so in this time frame, you just want to make sure you're paying attention to your spending, making sure your check-ins and savings is communicating with each other the right way, making sure that you're not spending or putting, unnecessary contracts together during this time that you might miss a detail and it'll come back to bite you later on. If you're a Gemini rising, Mercury is transiting and retrograding in your first house. What that means is that you're going to have to take more time to really focus on yourself, right? The first house is the house of identity. It's the house of self. It's how you communicate to the world and how the world expresses itself back to you. You might notice a need to reevaluate how you've thought about yourself. You might need to reevaluate how selfish you've been, or maybe how selfless you've been. Maybe it's a time for you to really focus on who you are as a person and what you're going after. What are some of the things that you want, and how you want other people to express that back to you. So use this time, Mercury in retrograde, to really understand self. this is what's going to be important to you during this period, so that moving forward, you can make the adjustment and really be your best self. Now, if you're Cancer rising, Mercury will be retrograding in your 12th house, the house of self-undoing, as they call it. The 12th house really rules your intuition, your intuitive nature about how you express yourself outside of the physical realm, right? Now, if you are a Cancer rising, your intuitive faculty, your gut feeling, that nature that you have might be out of whack. And what you're going to notice is that you're going to have to sort of rely more on the physical realm, right? The reality of nature to make your decisions, unlike what you're normally used to, possibly going off the gut, shooting from the hip. And this may be a time when things from your past come up again, possibly some unresolved issues that you have with an ex boyfriend or girlfriend, or someone in your life that may have done you wrong. They're most likely going to come up and you're going to have to confront that issue, most likely. But this is the time to confront those old issues, because Mercury in retrograde, again, highlights some of the things that we either did not pay enough attention to or that we should be paying attention to. So use this time to really understand what it is that you should be working on. What is it from your past that needs that attention? Leo rising, Mercury retrograding in your 11th house, your house of friendship, your house of organization. This might be a time where you and your friends don't see eye to eye. I mean, that happens a lot with friends, honestly, but what we need to realize is that we may need to put more focus on how we treat our friends and how we really express our ideas to each other. Again, Mercury in retrograde is all about expression of ideas, all about communication, even more so while it's retrograding in Gemini. So think about all the things you have going on with friends or all the organizations you're a part of, right? We want to make sure that we're not sort of communicating the wrong idea and the wrong message to those people, because what happens is we'll see a lot more issues pop up when they can also be avoided pretty easily. Now, for Virgo rising, Mercury will be retrograding in your 10th house. That's the house of the public eye. That's the house of your career, your vocation. This house rules what we do for work. It rules how people see us in the public eye. Now, one of the things that's important to know, when Mercury is retrograding in your 10th house, you may have some friction between people that are an authority to you, right? So you're thinking about work. Think about your manager and how you're communicating with them. This might be a period where communication is off, right? It might be a period where you rub your manager the wrong way or vice versa. The idea is really to keep in mind that these things are temporary. It's fleeting moments where during this period we really need to focus on understanding that what's being said is not necessarily what's being is intended. So keeping that in mind, we can sort of keep our emotions at bay. We can keep our keep ourselves from overreacting to a specific situation. So if at work you have a presentation coming up or an important meeting that you need to prepare for, you need to over prepare for that meeting. You need to really spend more time on that presentation, that PowerPoint. Or if you're looking to do something on Zoom, make sure all your settings are set correctly, because a lot of things might not go the way you want them because of oversight. And this is what can happen with Mercury in retrograde. We can overlook some of the minor details, and that's something you don't want to do at work. Now, with Libra as your rising sign, you have Gemini on your 9th house. And with Mercury retrograding in your 9th house, what you'll notice is that a lot of your higher faculties might be out of whack. Now, what do I mean by that? Typically, with the 9th house, we see that as the house of philosophy, the house of understanding, the house of long distance travel, cultural ideas, and the sharing of ideas about people far away. What we'll notice with the Mercury retrograding in Gemini in that house, there's a bit of a contradiction there. Maybe you're failing to grasp some of the higher concepts of, something you're studying. Any philosophical conversations you're having might not connect for you. If you're a student, the ninth house is typically, where we get our ability to study. This is going to be a chance that you're going to need to put in that extra focus. You're taking summer classes, this is something to watch out for. You're going to have to really buckle down and understand what it is that you're trying to grasp, because things that normally would come easy to you might take a little longer, might take some more repetition, and that's what you'll have to look out for. Now, as a Scorpio rising, the 8th house is going to be important for you. With Mercury retrograding the 8th house, that house is going to be the house that rules the finances of others and how that affects you. Now, if you're in a relationship, the finances of your partner will sort of come to light. What you need to do is really take time to understand how those things are going to affect you through the finances of others, right? So if someone owes you money, you might not get it. If you're coming to someone else for a loan or a business deal that's going to involve money, this is the time to really understand and tighten up those contracts. What you don't want to do is overlook any of those small details that may affect your own personal finances through the finances of others. This is also a time where the 8th house rules things we keep secret. Maybe this is a time where some of those things that are secret will come to light, or maybe expressed to others in ways that you didn't quite prepare for. With Sagittarius as your rising sign, you'll notice that Mercury will be retrograding in Gemini in your 7th house, the house of partnership. So if you're in a relationship with someone, you're going to really realize that there's going to be a lot of headbutting happening because the communication just isn't what it normally is, right? What that's going to do is going to cause you and your partner to focus on what the root cause is what the root problem is, and try to get down to the issues. Think about how you normally communicate. Maybe an old argument that happened before is now resurfacing. This time during Mercury in retrograde is the time to really address that and use this difficult period of communication to hammer out any issues that were unresolved from before. Also, you can use this time to think about any networking opportunities that you have had. It's a good time to reopen some of those conversations with business partners from previously that have kind of gone cold. Mercury in retrograde will give you that opportunity. However, you just need to take more time to focus on the details of those conversations and how they can benefit the partnership. Now, as a Capricorn rising, you'll have Mercury retrograding the 6th house, the house of service. It's also the house that rules our health and well-being. Mercury retrograde may be a time for you where you're having lots of anxiety. And this is a time for you to think about what causes those anxiety, what causes you to have this nervous energy, and possibly help to address that so that those nervous energies don't actually turn into maybe a health or illness or a cold or anything serious like that. So take this time to really think about what those causes can be and try to adjust for that. What you'll need to do is understand what it is you're doing with regards to your diet, and make sure some of those maybe unhealthy eating habits aren't going to pop up as maybe some kind of illness. It just means that you'll have to focus more so on your healthy eating habits. Maybe this is a great time to hit the gym. Some of the things that you've been putting off to, creating a healthier lifestyle, this is the time to do it. Now, what we want to do is make sure that we're not overlooking some of those important habits that we should pick up. Or maybe those are habits that we should put down. Again, Mercury in retrograde is a time to focus. It's a time to reevaluate. How can we serve other people better, right? If you're a Capricorn rising, service to others is going to be important. Mercury in retrograde will highlight ways that you can help and be of service and help to others. Now, as an Aquarius rising, Mercury retrogrades your 5th house. The 5th house is the house of your romantic endeavors. It's also the house of children, if you have any. It's also the house of what we do for fun and creativity. Now, Mercury retrograde in Gemini in your 5th house will bring about a lot of changes. It'll bring about a bit of frustration and disruption with regards to your current circumstances, either romantically or in any creative endeavors that you're working on. And if you happen to have kids or work with kids, this might be a time to really be more patient with them so they don't drive you nuts. And lastly, as a Pisces rising, Mercury will be retrograding your 4th house, the house of home, the maternal nature of your life. Areas that you find that, this mothering feeling or what makes you feel safe or what makes you feel nurtured will be disrupted for a time period. So what does that mean? That whatever makes you feel at home might be disrupted, might feel foreign for some reason. Maybe you've got some home improvement projects happening that is causing you to feel a bit discomfort. Maybe there's some construction happening in your home, which gives you this feeling of not being able to feel rested in the house. Or you have family over, cousins or aunts, uncles, siblings that's visiting you where you don't feel quite at home in your house. This is a time to really focus on what makes you feel at home, how you can be nurturing and feel nurtured, and take that energy and really try to replicate it in your life. This might be as simple as calling up and reconnecting with that person that really made you feel at home, right? Maybe it's your mother, maybe someone who nurtured you when you were younger. Whatever it is that makes you feel like you are safe and nurtured, this is a time to really focus on that energy and do more to foster it. So again, Mercury retrograde is not always doom and gloom. It can be helpful in times where you need to really focus on areas of your life that haven't gotten the attention that it should have. And when we use this time frame to move ourselves forward, what we'll notice is that after the retrograde period is over, we'll see an improvement in that area of our life because we've actually gave it the attention it needed. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up or subscribe to the channel. If you have any questions, definitely hit me up in the comments section below. I'll be sure to get back to you. And in the meantime, happy Mercury retrograde. Make sure you use this to the fullest.